And we're back. Welcome to Comics Conspiracy, everybody at home. I'm GM Paul. I'm here to talk about all things that are conspiratorial when it comes to comics, especially mostly about the classic comics and their stories. With us today, we got Human Ramp.
Hello.
Okay. Hey. And amazing. We also got Duke on art. What are we drawing today, just for people who been living under a rock?
If you can't tell already, we're drawing Loki today.
Nice. All right. Anything else you want to plug, Duke?
No, that's all good for now. Yeah.
And we have a very special guest today. We have Camera Chris.
Love it.
Hey, Camera Chris.
Hi. What up? Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Do not be afraid to share your opinions, and I will struggle very difficult, but I will struggle to make sure that I keep my political opinions to myself. Anyway, as much as Jordan keeps trying to bait me,
I'm gonna bait you. I got
all
two
right.
I can bait.
All right. That all being said, guys, if you want, and unless anybody wants to talk about something off the hop, we can get into our first topic today.
How about a little introduction from Chris? Chris, what do you do? What brings you into, besides an invite, but what makes you want to talk about comics conspiracy?
Well, I'm a camera guy by trade. I do commercials and corporate videos and photography and all sorts of camera-related video production. I've done independent feature films and short films. I have been on a team that has produced 3 zombie movies.
Nice.
The first 2 are absolutely horrible. The last one, which is a mockumentary of the first 2, is actually won us awards all over the world.
Nice.
At independent film festivals, I won for best cinematographer in a film festival in Australia.
Right on.
And cool. A couple of other ones, but that one actually had a physical award. For comics, I've been a long-time collector since I was a kid. Obviously, I don't collect much anymore because there's not much worth collecting these days, any of the new stuff. But
you're going to fit in well here.
There's been a bit of nuggets here and there over the years. Since 2000, though, it's very slim. So that's where I come in. And I got my Kirby mug. Oh.
Very cool. Very cool.
Oh, that is, yeah, that's original too.
The king. All right. Cool. It's great to have you, Chris.
Thank you.
Amazing. All righty. Okay. Are we ready for our first topic then, Jordan? Or is anybody else we need to talk about?
No, I think we are ready to go.
Let's go.
All righty. Here we go. Topic number 1. Mining Strange Tales 110. And for the uninitiated at home, this is the first appearance of Doctor Strange. Not his origin, but his first appearance. All righty. So everybody's familiar with this story, hopefully?
I am.
To a lesser or greater degree?
Yes.
All right.
I'm waiting last night.
I'm waiting for Dave to answer.
I said for sure.
Uh-huh. Okay, how many times is he getting kicked today? Let's put the bet in. You got 3? All right.
I got a number 3.
I'm not getting kicked. So this is about that guy who he's like Sherlock Holmes, right? Doctor Strange. He's Sherlock Holmes also.
So that didn't take long. So anyway. All right. So okay. So
but
what do you think?
Not wrong. He's not technically wrong. They did steal a lot of Sherlock Holmesian concepts for Doctor Strange.
Oh, absolutely. He's like Vincent Price for comic books. That he was just pretty much built for it. All right, I guess I'll let him back in. One sec.
So Vincent Price is really like, I think that. What? Why are you guys laughing?
You know what? That was your best monologue yet. I hope you rewatch it and we go from there.
Absolutely.
Hey, no problem. I don't mind contributing.
I'll start this one off. I think the key component here is this enigmatic Mr. Krang, who's mentioned but never really defined. We just know that this guy who's having sleep problems because of a nightmare demon has screwed this guy over somehow, business wise. And while we're talking about that, I guess we can take a look at Strange Tales number 110. There we go. All right, so that's my take. I think that we should try to mine who Mr. Krang was, but it's up to you guys.
No, I am great with that because you know, it's a short story done by Stan Lee, R.I.P. And they're actually an amazing fantasy 110. I mean, like a lot of the amazing fantasies, they were short stories and into one book, as you can see up here. There's a lot of ads, but then different stories up here. But we are just focusing on the first appearance of Doc Strange and Mr. Krang. Just comes to Doctor Strange, asking for problems, but in the end, he is just trying to kill him while he is in this dormant-like state.
Hold on, Mr. Krang is never shown.
Sorry,
that's
my mistake.
Yeah, that's a villain. That criminal that wants to shoot Doctor Strange there at the end. Yes. He screwed over Mr. Krang, whoever Mr. Krang was. He was like a business partner or something of his.
That's correct.
Right. And
yes.
Strange found out about it in the astral world, in the dream world.
Yeah.
Correct. I'm horrible with names.
It's okay. I don't think we ever get this guy's name, the actual criminal. I don't think we get his name
on that. You are correct.
That would have taken up too much page space.
Absolutely. But they do. That's the thing. What makes it interesting to me is because basically the secondary character there, this criminal who's having the sleep problems, he doesn't get a name, but Mr. Krang is mentioned a couple times.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is weird.
Right? So that's why I thought maybe they were going to do something with that or something in the future, but they never did. And I thought that was something that we could mine. So I'm going to leave that on the table for you guys.
All right. Yeah.
So you want to go with Mr. Krang or you want to go with Mr. No Name?
No, Mr. Krang.
Mr. Krang.
Because he's
like, he could still tie, like Mr. No Name could still have an element, but I think
absolutely.
But I think the enigmatic Mr. Krang is something that we could actually mine for.
Sure. So we know he's a criminal. And so let's elaborate on what kind of criminal he is.
Business swindler. Remember, he said that he had swindled several people, and the last one was Mr. Krang.
Yeah, he had business dealings with several people that he'd screwed over.
Yep. So what is his business?
We don't know.
Right.
I think he's probably like he'll take whatever he can to make money, right?
How about this? Adapts. Right, that's probably true, as most con men would. But what if his specialty was dealing in rare artifacts?
There we go.
That makes sense.
There we go.
That ties him into Strange, right?
Rare artifacts. Absolutely, it does.
All right. I'm putting it back on the table for you guys. Okay.
Rare artifacts. So we got to make him hunt a rare artifact that the Sorcerer Supreme would be after.
Now, or that he already has it in his possession, right? So maybe he's got to break into Strange's place and get it, you know?
Sure.
Like, what's it, Bleecker Street or whatever it is? What's the address again? The famous address of the Senate.
Yeah, in Greenwich Village or something like that. Yeah, it's Bleecker Street. I can't remember the exact number. It may have something to do with
134 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's one of those iconic things, right? You never.
It is.
And what was Sherlock Holmes' address again?
Baker. Was it in Baker Street?
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely. So
man, they stole a lot.
Right? Why not? I mean, a lot of our heroes were, ripped from classic stories and whatnot, and just tweaked and modernized, right? Modernized. We're talking. When was this written?
177A Bleecker Street.
177A. Beautiful.
I was way
There we
off.
go. Yeah, it's even got that hyphen kind of thing of like, because Sherlock Holmes was B or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So
do you want him stealing the eye?
I think that's that might be too much on the nose. Maybe it's got to be something that gives him untold riches eventually, or able to increase his con even more. I think.
Okay.
Like,
Should
what
this
kind of?
should this tie into Nightmare too?
Sure, why not?
Oh. Yeah, so like when you think about dreams, like when people dream of like making themselves rich or whatever, maybe it's some kind of like thing, like almost like a genie in a lamp kind of thing. I don't know.
Right. Or like a ring, right?
Rings are cool.
Ring of untold riches. Like, I mean, I'm not great with names, but maybe it doesn't really need a fancy name. Or
Ring
how
of
about the
Gold.
Ring
Oh,
of
yeah.
Solomon?
Or the Ring of Dreams?
Ring of Dreams? I like that. Sure.
The Midas ring. Like
The
from
Midas ring.
Oh, yeah.
Midas
That's
touch.
kind of cool.
That's even better, yeah. Midas ring. Yeah. Because Solomon's more wisdom. I know he was rich, but the
Yeah.
Midas ring. I'm writing that down. I'm locking that in.
All right,
So he's
cool.
going after the Midas ring. And he's breaking into Bleecker Street. What happens when he gets into Bleecker Street?
Well, okay.
Or is he going in?
Is this Nightmare using this Mr. Krang to get at Doctor Strange, or is it just Mr. Krang doing this on his own? Is this an artifact that Doctor Strange already has? He's keeping in one of his vaults to keep it out of the public. You know what I mean? The sphere, the public sphere, so he can make sure that doesn't fall into wrong hands. It could be Mr. Krang coming to talk to Doctor Strange initially, just to thank him for helping him with that guy so many years ago.
I think the Nightmare, right? Yep. Nightmare planted the whole seed in this Mr. Krang or whatever, this guy. So that he's controlling him in a sense by dreams to give him the idea about it, right? Mm-hmm. In the same sense, this way it's kind of like distracting Doctor Strange so that Nightmare can try and pull something off himself, like, so maybe he's like a patsy of the whole thing.
Interesting. Now,
I like that.
There was one thing that I noticed is that going into this story, the very first appearance of Doctor Strange, it's already implied through their discourse that Nightmare and Doctor Strange are already long-term enemies.
Right. Not their first rodeo, so to speak.
But is this, I know it's first appearance of Doctor Strange, and I'm assuming, though I didn't look into it, is this first appearance of Nightmare? Like we're getting
I think so.
two arch rival characters introduced in one short story.
I think so.
Great question.
I think it is. I'm not going to bet the house on it, but I'd bet Dave on it. So,
what?
So,
yes, this is actually the first appearance of Nightmare. Yeah.
Good.
And
but it's implied
because he's very silhouetted. He's not even the
really
character
defined
that he came to be with the various green and black colors. He's just very much a visage.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Silhouetted visage.
So what if it's like Mr. Krang comes to thank Doctor Strange, but it's more of him trying to get information on this mystical ring that during one of their ancient battles, well, at least one of the confrontations before this issue, before this story, Doctor Strange was able to take this ring from Nightmare and secure it away, and now he's trying to get it back. Mr. Krang is trying to do it because he's like Dave said, he's being manipulated through his dreams to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Or because he's a thief, he actually stole this ring without even realizing what its true power was. Maybe he stole it because he had perceived value, and then he's finding out that it has power, and that's why Nightmare's after him.
I like that. And it ties in almost nicely with this because then Mr. Krang's going to Doctor Strange for help, just like this original criminal was.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's nice.
That's really good. Really good.
I'll
Oh,
go for
this is
that.
turning out pretty good. Now, does Mr. Krang really genuinely want help, or is he there to screw over Doctor Strange?
I mean, we said he's a business swindler, right?
Yep. Well,
Oh.
he's gray market at best. We'll see
Right.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he's there to screw over Mr. Strange, Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Yeah.
But obviously through deception and whatnot, considering we're
Yeah.
drawing Loki today. Yeah. Now, you said it's through his dreams and whatnot. Because Doctor Strange is a pretty savvy guy, he's going to be able to see right through this. Should there not be something enveloping him, Mr. Krang, to protect him from?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think we've already established now that Mr. Krang has acquired, that's air quotes, acquired a ring or some artifact. We're going to go with the ring.
Yep.
Now he's wearing it. Now that he's worn it, he says that he's cursed. He needs Doctor Strange's help, right? Because now ever since he's had this ring, he's having these terrible dreams. Doctor Strange then wants to get the ring off him, but the ring's just a big setup.
Yeah.
Perhaps
okay.
to trap. So if Doctor Strange does something to the ring mystically, it traps Doctor Strange or something like that and puts him in the mercy of Nightmare. What do you guys think of that?
Bringing him into the dream dimension,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I like
think
that.
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a ruse.
Okay.
That makes perfect sense to me.
All right. And then, of course, Doctor Strange's got to figure all that out, beat Nightmare, get back, and, of course, deal with Mr. Krang as well.
Yeah.
There he is right there.
So, any fine-tuning that we should add into this?
I'm trying to think.
Oh,
Yeah.
well.
I think it's pretty solid right now, and it ties in. Like, you could write a Doctor Strange story right now about this, and it ties in all the way back to his first appearance, man. That's amazing.
I love
I
it.
think it's pretty good.
It would probably be more involved than this original introduction to the Doctor Strange.
Right?
Chris, it's not a high bar. It's not a high bar. Yeah.
Written on the back of a matchbook, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. It's so good. So true. But I think Strange Tales was a comic that they were just, like Jordan said, they were just throwing out ideas and see if anything would stick to the wall.
Yeah, it was
right? So
definitely a poster board.
yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I like this. I like how it ties in all of that. Of course, Nightmare is never going to give up his hatred for Doctor Strange, and so this can tie in so many years later. And it's a good, like, for anybody who's a Doctor Strange fan, they would love this. It ties all back in.
Yeah.
And it's a good, solid, just one comic book story, right? The
Absolutely.
full comic, all 20 pages.
It could be that, or the trap could work and send Doctor Strange on an epic adventure.
In the Nightmare realm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of ways you can take that story.
So good.
And then we find out the Illuminati actually sent him there because there's a civil war coming. Oh, okay. Cancel that idea.
Who let you?
All right.
in?
So, right. I think this is really, really good. I also like that they had Wong in this issue, but you couldn't really see him. They didn't even really draw him,
No.
but he was there. He opened
Yeah.
the door for the criminal, right? And said,
Yeah.
Doctor Strange knows all. Come in, kind of thing.
There he is.
Yep. They didn't really draw his head, though.
No.
They
didn't know what he
just
looked
there.
like
He's
yet.
a blob. Yep. Also, this is done by the great Steve Ditko.
Yes.
You can tell.
Yep. Absolutely.
And you can. We brought up Vincent Price earlier, but like, it's uncanny the resemblance, right? It just pretty much stand there while we draw you. Now we have our new guy.
Yeah.
All right.
And honestly, I hadn't considered that until it was mentioned here. But
Right.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. It's right there. Right there.
They definitely did.
I think
that or Christopher Lee. I mean,
yeah,
that's got some Christopher Lee Dracula vibes going on.
Oh, that's true too.
that too.
Yeah, I
It's
see
the
that.
mustache though. It's the mustache that makes me think Vincent Price.
Yeah,
Yep.
and if you look back and the history of, especially during that time of when superhero titles were coming up, they never they admit to taking concepts and ideas from existing either intellectual property or from existing people, and even fashioning them after themselves in some regards.
Mm-hmm.
But they never made one character a portrayal of one other piece. It was always an amalgamation. So it could even be an amalgamation of the various things and beyond from what we've suggested. Might be interesting to look up actually to see
Really
if they
cool.
actually say
Not
that.
a bad idea.
That's really cool.
And the question
I
is,
just
did Stan Lee say, yeah, make him like Vincent Price or whatever, or did Steve Ditko do that on his own?
who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Those two are rarely on the same page, so who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. All I know is that Vincent Price should be getting royalties. So, well, when he was alive. Anyway, royalties. All right, guys, this might have been one of the fastest mining we ever had. Mr.
I mean,
Krang.
There was a very clear direction where to go, and we had free reins to just do whatever we wanted, right? And so we created an artifact that works for Doctor Strange, and then Mr. Krang, Nightmare, we had to not flush out Nightmare more, but this circles back to their first appearances, not even their origins, and
Mhm.
and less is more when we're dealing with this mining stuff because we're not bound to anything and we're not having to jump through any hoops to make sure we're not meeting up with future titles or whatnot. So yeah,
Mhm.
it was fairly easy to just come up with something again, come up with something and create a modern day story. Marvel, do
So
better.
good. If we can do it, why can't they do it? That's all I'm saying.
That's what Tommy
All I'm
listened.
saying. Yep. All righty, guys. Are we ready to move on to our second topic?
Yeah.
Let's bring it on.
All right. This one's from this is Jordan's selection.
Boom.
And it's going to be why are comics compelling? And I'm sure each of us are going to have our own thoughts on this.
Exactly. I think this is going to be a pretty subjective one, but I would like to find some objective truths to what makes comics compelling. I think some objectiveness would be the art. Now, each style would be different per person, right? Some people prefer a more cartoony, some people prefer a more realistic approach, but comics generally, for the most part, need to be bright and vibrant, right? That's what makes them sell. Good cover art. For me, what makes a comic compelling, and I don't mean like a 20 pager. I mean like an actual comic arc, right? What makes me want to buy that next issue? And it's the conflict and the villains for me. If there's not much of a good villain, then I'm not really invested because at the end of the day, um, and there are a few dumb examples of heroes not doing the right thing, but at the end of the day, the heroes do the right thing and overcome. So, what is the villain story for me, and what's driving them to be a thorn in our hero's side? That's me.
Their
Let's
motivation.
start with our newest person, Camera Chris. What makes a comic compelling to you?
Well, what's always drawn me in is I've always had a very built-in innate passion for right and wrong. There is very little gray area for me in most things. So I'm either you're either right or you're wrong. You're either following facts and logic or you're following emotions. Not that emotions are wrong, but when emotional arguments in my mind can always be defeated by facts and logic. Because the way you feel about something is often irrelevant to why something happens, because nature doesn't give a shit how you feel. A lion doesn't give a shit how you feel. If it's hungry, it's going to eat you. And that's the black and white of things. So for me, I was always drawn to the characters, even the flawed ones. Like, back when I was collecting, it was during the time in the 80s and 90s. It was during the time of Iron Man, which was one of my core titles that I collected. And he had alcoholic issues, and he was struggling with the fact that he was an arms dealer. And then, and I remember when armor wars happened, the real armor wars, not the bullshit they're peddling now. And I didn't think to ask, you guys cool with swearing, or?
Go ahead, knock it out of the park.
Okay, good. But my biggest titles, I guess, were, I was heavy in the Marvel genre, and though I collected DC titles, I was light in them because I found there wasn't enough genuine personal feel to the characters. That everyone seemed to be a billionaire that needed to fight crime, and and Superman, not being a billionaire, was just flawless and therefore boring. There was nothing, and the only thing that could defeat him was kryptonite. So everyone seemed to find kryptonite whenever they needed to. But my biggest titles were Iron Man, Captain America, Spider Man, eventually X Men, and then along came some of the other titles. But those were my core, and Punisher. And I've even got Punisher War Journal #1. Like, I was there when that all started. So I very much liked the characters that had a definite sense of right and wrong. And then the artwork really played into it for me. And going back and looking at the evolution of the artwork and where comics came from as an artistic form, and who were the groundbreakers like your Kirby's and Ditko's and Byrne, that really brought very two-dimensional objects and finally were able to make them come to life and make them pop off the page more. And then now to what we have with, very much digitally enhanced artistry and things that accentuate that even more. But for me, that's what my draw is. Sorry, is just the 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 hero's journey in a sense, but also the very much guided by a definite sense of what's right and what's wrong, and defending people that can't otherwise.
That's
Really
a
good.
really good answer. Really good. Any
Yeah.
questions for Chris that anybody has?
I got. Okay, obviously you're a classic guy, retro like I am,
Very much.
and I really appreciate that. But now that you see some of the direction that comic books have headed into in the modern day, what do you think about that black and white now?
Well, I mean, modern day now is just absolute garbage. So I can't even compare it. Now, mind you, a friend of mine turned me onto this, and then I was out with my daughter and we saw it at the comic shop at Square One, and I had mentioned it to her, and she saw the full graphic novel and picked it up. And I don't know if you guys have heard.
The Last Ronin.
That is some good
Right?
stuff there.
Oh, yes.
So I'm only on. I just started reading it this week, and I'm only on. Oh, they didn't number the pages. I'm not far into it, but all the reviews, and from a friend of mine who is a longtime friend, and we actually met at a friend's house playing Marvel role playing in 1991, and or maybe it was even 90. and we've been best friends ever since. He lives in Taiwan. He actually is an artist that draws comic books. They have their own private title called Formosa Comics. And he turned me onto this. I turned my daughter onto it, and she bought it, and now she's turned me onto it because she read the whole thing in a couple of days, and she said it was amazing.
Yep.
So, other than stuff like that, and like I said, very few titles I think since 2000, since the turn of the century, have done anything worthwhile. You know, there have been some really, really amazing series like Old Man Logan knocked it out, and I didn't want to like it. House of M, the Illuminati series, Civil War. There've been a bunch, but ever since around 2010 to 2013, along with everything else in entertainment and politics and whatever, this woke nonsense agenda has destroyed, and I think purposefully so, has destroyed just basic storytelling, because everything needs to fit into certain chambers and buckets and quotas. So it's no longer about telling a good valid story that compels the reader to turn the page. It's about how many buckets can we fill on this page. Like, you know, we were just talking about first appearance of Doctor Strange in Strange Tales, and it's what, 3 pages, 4 pages of a story that introduces you to a whole new character, lets you know where he's at and kind of what he's about, but it definitely draws you in to the mysticism and the mystique of the character.
Right.
And because you don't know that he's the sorcerer, well, he technically wasn't sorcerer supreme yet, but you don't know the full volume of what he's about and what he's capable of. But it gives you, and this is one of the core tenets that I think is lacking in modern storytelling, is reserved mystery about a character. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but
You're killing it.
let me bring up a point. Doctor Who. I was a long-time Doctor Who fan from the time that I was a kid. And when I was a kid, you could only watch Doctor Who on TV Ontario, and it wasn't listed in the TV guide. Well, sometimes it was, but they were half-hour episodes, and part of what was cool about them was the weird budget that they had, and their lack of ability to get a movie level budget for a TV show, especially in the UK, added to the weirdness and the fascination of what they were doing, because they were able to do things and they wanted to do so much more, and you could see that even as a young kid. I could see that, but it was almost like the paper mache quality of certain characters made it creepier, and that's what they were going for, was a creepiness factor. And so you've got this character that is a Time Lord. Well, what the hell's a Time Lord? And in that very simple definition, you create a mystery of the character, because then he's apart from his own kind for various reasons that sometimes get trickled out throughout the course of the epically long run of the show. And then they bring it back in 2005, and they reintroduce the character to a whole new generation, people that would have never even considered it back in the day. And they've got bigger budgets, and technology is at a point where even the budgets of a smaller budget could create bigger looking things, and special effects being what they are, and keep growing, and they're more available to everybody, they were able to knock it out of the park. And then what they did was they added in this wicked mystery component of, not only is he a Time Lord, but he reveals in the first episode back, the pilot episode called Rose, he reveals, I'm the last of the Time Lords. And as an old fan, you go, whoa, that's massive. Why is he the last of the Time Lords? And what could that possibly mean? And oh my God, there was a time war, the war to end all wars across the universe, and he's the sole survivor. And like, it's the mystery that of a character that keeps you interested. The old entertainment adage of always leave them wanting more. And if you reveal everything all at once, or you give these backstories, I didn't want to know that Han Solo got his name because he filled out a form and didn't have a fucking last name, and some jerk off behind the counter said, "Oh, so you're on your own." Well, then you're solo. Like that is in any realm that is retarded writing. But when you compound it with the fact that you've got a fan base that are clamoring for more material from the thing that they love, and then you're barely kicking a can down the road with the effort that you're putting in.
Mm-hmm.
So I still remember your original question. I can't find value in any of the newer stuff. And it is for those reasons and more that, again, obviously I could talk ad nauseum and probably already have. But the things that have been good and the things that stand out, and the people that are still willing to do stuff like The Last Ronin, it's like when the old trick of you hang out with an uglier person, and then by de facto status you look more attractive. So you know, if you're at a party and you bring your ugly friend along with you, you might be more likely to pick up because you know.
Is that why I was invited to so many parties?
Yes.
Damn it. Anyways, go on.
So in contrast, I don't know. I haven't fully read The Last Ronin, but from everything I've heard, it's amazing, and from what I'm seeing, it is true to the lore of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They've added in this what I perceive to be this component that the rest of them have been executed, murdered, whatever, killed off. So you've got one turtle left, and of course there's the mystery again. You want to find out what happened to the other ones, and now he's on a new adventure trying to figure things out, and they introduce it in a way that asks you that begs you asking questions. Look at the Matrix, the movie The Matrix, that everyone quotes for various reasons. That movie opens up on such a mystery that you see these cops coming in to get somebody in this dank hotel, run down, evacuated, abandoned, and they enter this room where this woman is just sitting there in a chair, and you're like what the fuck is this? And if you remember the ad campaign leading up to it was, what is the Matrix?
Right.
Yep.
So when you went to see this movie, they didn't reveal shit before you got there, so that you were left in mystery. You got the unraveling when it happened on screen for you. And unless you had asshole friends that spoiled it for you, and you went to the movie based on the hype of everyone going, you got to go and see the Matrix, that's the draw, is you didn't know what the hell you were walking into. So you walk into they bust into this room with this woman sitting in a chair, and then all of a sudden she leaps and does this like flying crane technique, and you're like, what the fuck is happening here? And that's and it doesn't get revealed until later, and you don't know what's going on. And that's mystery. That's what keeps people tuning in. That's what keeps people paying for good stories.
Absolutely.
I
That's
rest
why
Nailed it.
Wolverine was so popular for so long.
Oh, the
Yep.
so yeah, you brought up House of M earlier. Like, great. I really enjoyed that story as well. You know, I like the art. I liked, you know, everybody is affected by what's going on. And we, again, mystery. We don't know what's going on, and you're just following, you know, one hero, right? I think it's Wolverine because
Well,
his
and
regeneration.
that's storytelling. Is you have your core antagonist. Sometimes you have more than one, but
Yeah,
you have your core focal antagonist, and he or she is the one that brings you through the story, and you're associating with them. So yes, and you open up, very much to your point, you open up on that story, and you're like, the fuck is Wolverine doing being a shield agent, wearing the fucking outfit?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, so
yeah.
again, as a longtime comic fan, or even as someone who is picking up comics for the first time, you can't have not heard of Wolverine. There's a
Right.
reason you're picking up that book. So you get in it and you're going, what is this? This isn't like anything I've read so far. This isn't like the movies that I just saw. Like, what's going on here? And it draws you down further into the story.
Now, Do you think they should have? I know this is a little off topic. I just want to ask: should they have stuck? Because at the end of House of M, he wakes up and he well, not wakes up, but he shoots up because he was in the field, and she says no more mutants, but he says I remember everything. Should they have cut that whole page out? I remember everything, or were you happy when they opened up his origin story?
I wasn't, but much like retelling origin stories like Peter Parker's origin story and how he got bit by the spider, and even the slight changes in iterations of that story, or Kal-El's journey to Earth and Krypton blowing up and whatever, the retelling of origin stories, when you have such a mysterious character, I guess you can only drag it out so long. I'm not in favor of revealing everything. And so, yes, I'm not in favor of what they did. And even giving him the name James Howlett just still sits raw with me.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right. Right?
Yeah. And
His name's Logan.
right. And
Yeah.
it feels like robbing the multiple people that have worked on that character over the years. It's first of all, you're already piggybacking off of their intellectual property and their hard work, and then you're sort of spitting in the face of it. And see, and again, I'm also I can argue two sides of a story, because I also see it as, okay, but you have to acknowledge that this genre in particular is a conglomerate of multiple people working on these things. Like, yes, people create these characters, and I used to be very hard nosed, the same way I was with music as being a former musician. I hated cover versions. I felt like that's their intellectual property, their artistry, their imagination, their work, their blood, sweat, and tears in many cases, their long hours of not only studying their craft, but exhuming the investment of their person to be able to create, like, they're basically birthing a new person, not in the physical sense, but they are the imagination it takes to create a fully realized character.
A flushed out, yeah, with
And it may take,
backstories and family and yeah.
yeah, and it may take time for them to be fully realized. But even to get a character on paper, like even the Doctor Strange Tales introduction, you've only got a very few pages of a story of a new character that became one of their biggest sellers, one of their most powerful characters, to the point where they had to dumb him down. He was like Superman. He was just too infinitely powerful, and they had to nerf him over time. But you've got enough of a character right there for you to build on, and for people to be interested in, and the interest affords you, or a company like Marvel affords them, the ability to continue to work on a character and develop it and create enemies and friends and everything, and a world. And then, of course, because you've got the Marvel universe, they're in a world within a world. So you've got the Doctor Strange world and his enemies, and then it was always weird when you would see enemies that were created for certain characters. It was a while before you started seeing them cross over into other titles and go up against other enemies. Like, you didn't see Scorpion going up against the Fantastic Four, but once they realized that you could take certain characters and blend them into other stories and make crossovers of this and create this entire universe where Captain America might bump into Daredevil, and if he did it after a warehouse full of drugs exploded, he might beat the shit out of him and cause him to go amnesic. So,
Right?
and that's the beautiful thing about this comics world, the universes that they've built. But in that comes a responsibility to the intellectual property, to the original artists and creators and storytellers, that you need to treat that like a one layer Fabergé egg, because it is such a unique thing and so fragile, and it is being handed to you for you to work on, not for you to crack open and see everything that's inside,
Eh,
and treat it like it was just another thing for you to play with.
and might I add, a responsibility to the people who are actually buying the product, right?
100%, because it's flagrant what they're doing with so many entertainment properties right now, in that they are seemingly hell-bent on destroying it. And I have my own theories about that, and I'm sure Paul and I could talk and commiserate.
All day.
Yeah. But no sense in going down that rabbit hole. It's very clear to me that there is a purposeful destruction of many brands, and but be it intellectual brands or physical brands. And I see why, and I don't like it. I reject it. But to boil it down to what we're talking about, or the broader entertainment business, I do not approve of someone like. Would you let someone paint over the Mona Lisa and say she needed a nose ring and a tongue piercing and like,
Purple hair.
right? Like, to me, comic books, stories and art, because the stories are art themselves, but then you've got the actual illustrated art. They are no different than classic pieces of artwork. And I think they should be treated the same way. And obviously they are handled differently and can be handled differently, because you're going on with, you're not taking an old book and destroying it, because they were published in multiples. So it's physically impossible. But what you're doing is you're continuing on those stories and those characters. So I think that you should be treating them with reverence and love and compassion. And I think that none of the people in charge, none of the people that they're delegating to, have any of that within them.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Dave, let's go to you. What makes a comic compelling to you?
Well, it's not a comic that's compelling to me. It's the epicness of a comic.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is it's the longevity. That it's not like a one-off. It is spans decades. It's like the whole masterpiece as a whole, you know? And it's unfortunate. Yes, there's going to be times where continuity is ruined and, bad creative direction, but it's that whole legacy of that icon, like these heroes that we've created, or villains or whatever, these stories, they're our modern mythology, right? There are Gilgamesh, there are, that's been around forever. This is what makes it compelling to me. This is why I think people are into comic books, is because there is a legacy to it all. But I'm not going to ramble forever, but go on.
No, I agree. I
take that as an insult that you won't.
Right? You will not ramble about your Gilgamesh. So yeah, you're exactly right. It's not necessarily your favorite issue of Spider-Man. It's Amazing Fantasy 15 all the way up until,
Right. I mean,
where
and especially all those really cool multiverse arcs. Those are like so awesome, and
But you
Okay.
can't.
So
Going to respond to that. I was going to say you can't.
go ahead. You can respond to it. That's fine.
You can't have multiverse arcs without laying the groundwork of the essential core characters to begin with, and creating their mini pockets of the universe within. Like you can't have a Spider-Verse before you establish not only Peter Parker, why he's Spider-Man, but you establish all of his relationships along the way. You've got your Gwen Gwen Cooper. You've got no, not Gwen Cooper. That's
Stacy.
Torchwood. I know I was saying Torchwood, Gwen Cooper.
Yes.
You know, MJ obviously, but you've got all these other characters. You've got the Osborns. You've got like they've built such a thing.
There's
out
a
of
whole interconnected world within the Marvel world.
Right.
And so much so it's, hey, what would happen if this happened instead? You know what? Let's actually say this happened. But again, going back to what you said, the first world has to work.
Right, because if you, and again, this is what another part of what's destroying entertainment at large, but comic books as well, is they aren't respecting. So if you have Spider-Man as a title, and you have Spider-Man get married to Mary Jane, and then in a crossover, you have him in an Incredible Hulk issue where he fights the Hulk back in the McFarlane era, and you have him trying to date Betty Brant,
Right.
and you're just like, wait a minute, this is
It's confusing.
non-continuous. Yeah. So the care that was taken, at least up until recently, was that when something was established, you don't fuck that up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed. Paul,
Uh-huh.
I saved you for last.
Yeah, well, thanks, because I have this list of all the reasons why I find comics compelling.
Oh,
and as Chris and Dave went on, I'm just crossing off the list, crossing off the list, crossing off the list.
Oh,
I was like, so
That's okay. You can touch on them again.
no, exactly. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Okay, obviously we focus on Marvel Comics. It's what we know, and it's where our heart is. But there are so many different types of comics, even in the Marvel age, so to speak. Like a Ghost Rider comic is very, very different than, say, like a Fantastic Four comic, which is very different than, say, like a Blade comic or something along those lines. There are so many different reasons to collect comics, to get immersed in them, because it's why there's so many different kinds of stories as well. The reason why somebody would pick up a romance novel and get immersed in that is very different than somebody would pick up The Hobbit and get immersed in that. There are so many different types of stories, and
with comics, you kind of get a little bit of all of that, right?
Right. It is so immersive. It's the reason why they came out with they had the Amazing Spider-Man, and then they came out with Peter Parker is the Spectacular Spider-Man, because Amazing Spider-Man was supposed to focus on the action, and originally this was the concept, and Spectacular was supposed to be focusing on the soap opera aspect of Peter Parker, right?
I never knew that.
Yeah, that was the original idea. Ultimately, they just ended up both being Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But that was the original concept. That's what they wanted to do, right? Because there was so much story there, right, that was going on. So they wanted to focus Spectacular on the soap opera aspects. Amazing was going to be on the action. And they were going to be able, even within a single character, you were going to be able to give people different things, right? Like you were going to be able, like Spectacular Spider-Man could have appealed to more girls if they had stuck true to the actual concept of it, right? And Peter getting involved in love triangles and, his complications at home and everything else like that, where Amazing Spider-Man was for the guys, where we just want to see Scorpion get thrown into a wall by his tail. But, there were so many different reasons to get immersed in these comics. It's endless, the reasons why you would get invested into a particular comic. Do you know what I mean? Endless reasons. The reason why somebody likes Punisher and is really heavy into Punisher is going to be very, very different than why they like Captain America. Okay? It's almost night and day, right? So, but it's still under one umbrella. And that's, I think, what makes it really, really special to me was when Marvel really broke out into the Marvel age and realized, hold on, what if Spider-Man showed up in a Fantastic Four comic? Right. You know what I mean? And they realized the sky was the limit and anything could go. And I don't have to collect that Fantastic Four comic if I'm not in the Fantastic Four, and I can just stay focused on Spider-Man, right? I can do that.
Well, and
but
if I can interject, the precursor to all that happening was the Fantastic Four, was X-Men, was the Avengers. That was them going, you know what? If we took a bunch of different characters and put them as a team, and then that's what spawned the whole Marvel universe, was because then they said, if we can do this with a team, why can't we do this with the entire collection of what we have? Now they can cross over and intermingle.
Yep. Absolutely. And as long as they're staying true to the spirit of the character, pretty much the sky's the limit. But as Chris has covered, they're not sticking true to any kind of spirit for any reason right now. And there are definite agendas involved, and I'm not going to go into that. But the thing is those are all the reasons. Like the reason why I can't say, because the reason why somebody likes Ghost Rider and his stories is not going to be the same when somebody likes the Fantastic Four and their stories. It just isn't. But it has such wide ranging of appeal if people just give a comic book a chance, right? One last note, I'm going to end on that because everybody else covered everything very well, especially the mythology part. I thought I was going to knock it out of the park. Dave, I hate you. But nonetheless, Last Ronin is literally keeping IDW on life support. If it wasn't for that book alone, that company would be dead. So there you go. That's how good that book is. It is keeping that comic company alive. It is the only thing that is.
Which is sad when you have an IP like the Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they destroy it, man. They destroy it. So they lost Transformers. They lost G.I. Joe because of all the stuff that they're the same things that is happening at Marvel and DC happening there. So yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I highly recommend Last Ronin. You're gonna love it, Chris. So there we go. Okay, I'm done my point.
That was good. That was good.
Okay.
Everybody did really well. And Dave, I've just been watching you create this Loki out of nothing. You started
right
before we started recording, and it was literally just a blank piece of paper. And wow, the detail in that.
I can shoot gun and walk at the same time sometimes.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. I think we're on to our next topic. Is that right?
All right, we got to take a break then, guys. It's town time.
Okay.
All right, so I'll meet everybody back here in a couple minutes.
Yeah. We'll be right back.
All right, cool.
I like that. I might do some research on this. The amalgamation of the origin of heroes. Like, where did they get Doctor Strange from, and who did they pick from?
Well,
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Hulk Banner, very easy, right? Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Right, obviously, yeah.
Right? So we can dive into that later on.
What's also interesting, and maybe, is this being recorded as part of the
it's all being recorded, so whatever Luke finds good, then he'll use it, yeah.
Because one of the other things that you could possibly also use as a topic.
Who are we waiting on?
You.
Oh, jeez.
And I've read up on before.
All right, Griff.
Is the crossover of who originated characters and who stole characters, and it's actually pretty even. DC to Marvel, like Darkseid, Thanos, and that kind of shit. Deadpool, Deadshot.
I read that article. Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, well, there have been a few because I've read a couple of different ones, and some claim certain things. But if you look at the dates and whatnot,
yep. All righty, are we going into our next topic then?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right,
just writing that down.
This is the minefield. Get ready. All right, here we go.
Yeah, good luck. You're done.
Yeah,
you're done.
Tokenized women and their success. All right, so basically what we're trying to talk about here, because I know Jordan's going to ask. All right, can these characters have stood on their own merit, or did they need established characters to springboard them? Are they just lazy writing, or are they actually innovative ideas?
Yes.
This is what we're going to be talking about, right? Of course. I have different opinions on it depending on the character, of course. And not all tokenizations are equal. They're going to be, obviously, there's going to be some that are very, very blatant, and there are going to be others that are more subtle and infinitely better done. So, okay. Jordan, what do you think?
I think that makes perfect sense from your explanation. So we're looking at characters that we came from. So I'll use right off the hop Spider Gwen or Spider Woman, right?
Sure.
Would they
Let's
be
let's try to
successful?
keep let's try to keep it classic. So let's talk
Sure.
about Spider Woman. All right.
Yep. Would
Yeah.
Spider Woman have survived if Spider Man didn't exist? Is the question, right? Not
Or
just
been
Spider Woman.
successful.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Or bit right. Yeah.
Like,
Successful.
are you asking as an original character? If they introduced Spider Woman as an original character before there was an existing Spider Man, would it have been successful?
Sure.
She's an
That
interesting one.
as well. Yeah.
Or you can introduce the character, right? But not have called her something like Spider Woman. She could have been Widow or something like that, right?
Right.
Is that what you're saying? Instead of like leaning so heavy on the origins of one character or the look of one character.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, exactly. Because we all know that, you know what I mean, there's a certain draw when you have a spider in front of something in a Marvel comic, right? It immediately is going to pique certain interests just by having spider in the title. So, or some derivative thereof. My point is do these characters deserve the merits and accolades perhaps they've been given over the years, or are they just riding coattails? Right? Like let's be honest. So that's what I want to talk about. Right? Is the Marvel universe better for having She-Hulk in it? We'll say, or would it just been better to more develop the Hulk even more instead of spending those efforts on another character that is just a female Hulk? Right? And don't get me wrong, I'm just being devil's advocate here because if you're going to ask me specifically, She-Hulk is one of my favorite tokenized characters of all time. So there we go, right? Like if I had to say,
Why?
if I had to pick a character that was tokenized and say, do you actually like them? Do you think they are successful? She-Hulk would probably fit that bill better than most.
All right.
Okay.
Well, why don't we pick like one each, and that way we can focus on talking about one tokenized character,
or not. Just talk about it, guys.
Sure. I think Chris asked you why She-Hulk is one of your favorite characters of all
I'm
time.
curious as to why you would pick.
I think because she's becomes, with few exceptions, because we're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of titles that she's been involved in and stuff like that. But with few exceptions, her development, her stories, her arcs are wildly deviant from Bruce Banner's. Do you know what I mean? She has a very, very unique direction that goes in way different paths than the Hulk does. And so, yeah, I'll say that she's not just like, she didn't start off that way with the Savage She-Hulk. She was very much similar to Hulk with maybe even more wonky storylines, but eventually she becomes her own character, very much so, right? She's not just a female Bruce Banner. You know what I mean? So, and I think her storylines, you get much more variance in her storylines than you say you do with a Hulk story. With a Hulk story, we pretty know what we can. It's very formulaic. With She-Hulk, you really don't know what you're going to get when you open up that cover. So that's what I'll say about She-Hulk.
Yeah, and I think this, lends to your point is, yes, okay, they're tokenized, and in the case of the two most notable, the Spider Woman and She-Hulk, you're taking two of the largest Marvel names and spinning off a gendered version, and it was at a point where Stan even admits, look, we ran out of ideas of how to make superpowered beings, which is why they came up with the mutant factor.
Yep.
And they said, like, there's only so many times someone could get dosed with radiation and develop, superhuman abilities before people stopped going, okay, that's plausible, that's believable, that's okay, whatever. and they came up with the mutant thing. So when you look at it from the perspective of how do you create a character, because it's not easy. Creating a, like I had mentioned in the previous segment, creating a character or writing a song, if it were easy, everyone would do it.
Absolutely.
It takes a certain brain and a certain level of creativity to be able to do it. And in doing so, you have to consider a lot of factors, not just who they are, where they come from in the realm of superheroes, anyways. Not just who they are, where they come from, who their parents were, why they're where they are in life, and what brought them to that point, and what they will do with this newfound power that has been bestowed upon them for various reasons, mostly involving radiation. But you've got to then therefore figure out, why would spilling a can of radiation blind a kid, but then give him supersonic hearing to the point where he can hear your heartbeat and anticipate your next move, or whether you're lying or not? Like, it is a stretch, even in the realm of people can fly and have claws come out of their arms. It's a weird stretch. So when you've got an existing character and you've got something that is tried and tested, it makes sense to spin it off. It makes sense to feed off of that success. And as your own company and your own properties, it makes even more sense.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, do you also affirm though that it could be aspects of lazy writing?
100%.
Yep.
In and of itself, it is lazy writing. It's good
Well-
business, but it's lazy writing.
Yep. Now, I'm not saying it can't be put in hands that will take that ball and run crazy with it, right, and do amazing things with it. But the initial concept is a lazy one.
Other than She-Hulk, name one that's been amazing that they've done this concept with.
I think Carol Danvers is really good. I mean, the original.
Okay. Yeah, but
I don't even know you, Dave, but I want to punch you.
why? Why is that?
Carol Danvers? That's your argument?
Hold on.
The
Are we talking about Ms. Marvel, or are we talking about Captain Marvel? What are we talking about here?
Well, I would
Because
say Miss Marvel.
Carol
right?
Danvers is a very, very different character depending on who she is.
Right, exactly. But she
Yeah.
does have depth on her own, right?
That's fair,
Yeah.
but you can also argue that she's a shit character, and the reason that she's gone through so many iterations, basically different existences, is because they don't know what to do with the character because the character doesn't work.
And
In a lot of
really,
ways.
they got to keep that Marvel.
Hey,
copyright.
I'm going to be honest with you. Marvel was ripped off. We all know it. It's just the way it is. He was ripped off. All right. But I'm going to punch you, Dave. Chris, if you need, I will kick him off the stream again. Don't worry about it. So,
No, I enjoy conflicting opinions.
But okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I think
fun.
Yeah, I think the original Spider-Woman has a certain appeal. Now, resounding success? No. There are very few instances of that, and even She-Hulk has phases where she is, well, barely relevant, and you know what I mean, and not so successful.
I think these characters are there now. I don't even understand where Spider-Woman comes from, other than piggybacking off of Spider-Man.
Well,
They're so
She doesn't really.
It
It's
depends
just
on
the
which
name.
origin story you buy into, right? Like, they've changed her backstory at least 3 times that I'm
Right.
aware of.
Yep.
right. Whereas She-Hulk, right? Because I think this is where what we're going to talk about mostly. I mean, I have one more I want to bring up. She-Hulk flushes out Bruce and the gamma radiation, right? Like, even going back to her origin story, she's gonna die, right? And there's, quote unquote, nothing else in the Marvel universe that can save her except for her cousin's own blood, right? So Bruce makes this realization, and he gives her his blood, and then we get She-Hulk, right? And so it flushes out Banner, but then it also gives us more to the Hulk world, the radiation, the gamma radiation. It flushes out that story more. So I mean, you could also say it's not even tokenized. That's just an evolution of the Hulk.
No, it's 100% tokenized.
Interesting. I'm listening.
100%. She's green. She's super strong, right?
Yep.
And literally the title is She What?
Hulk. Yep. Sure.
She's tokenized.
Sure.
And to Paul's point, her physiology, she could have reacted differently to
Yes.
Banner's gamma blood in the original telling of her origin story. She could have had a different reaction, and they could have spun off a totally brand new character, given her that easy reason for having powers, but given her totally different powers.
So, in that sense, do you argue that Abomination is a tokenized villain?
Hold on. Yeah. Number one, I noticed that we're going to keep going to She-Hulk, and I'll let you know why we're going to see She-Hulk, because she's the exception to the rule.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's why we're going to keep going to her. But I'm letting you know there are other ones that we can talk about, and we should talk about, but we will avoid, because She-Hulk is the exception to the rule. And that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, she's one of the best tokenized characters that were ever done.
Got it.
But,
so let's talk about some failures.
What?
Let's talk about some failures, because I know She-Hulk's going to get thrown back in.
Captain Marvel.
So, yeah, I was going to say, so we're bringing up
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Terrible. Captain Marvel ripped off. Terrible. Travesty.
Sure.
Not even going to talk about it. Yep.
Sure. I mean,
she's a photocopy of a copy, right? So, I mean,
yeah.
So I'm an 84 baby, right? I was born in 84. I'm a generation behind you guys. Captain Marvel for me is just the origin story for Rogue. That's all she ever really was to me.
Yep.
Honestly, that's all she ever was.
That was Ms. Marvel. That was Ms. Marvel, though.
Sorry, Ms. Marvel. Yeah. It's still Carol Danvers, right? Like that.
Yeah, Carol Danvers.
Right. So I mean, and that's convoluted in itself for a new reader, to be honest. But is she Captain Marvel? Is she Ms. Marvel? Is she Carol Danvers? Like, pick a lane, guys.
Okay,
I agree.
Let's further that though, because you have Kamala Khan, right?
Oh, jeez, I'm done. Dave, seriously?
No.
Yeah, no, but he's not wrong. Like, talk about a tokenized version of a tokenized character, right?
Oh, well, that's what I'm talking about. Where does the laziness end?
Yeah.
Right. And how many times have these tokenized characters been rebooted? Like over and over and over again. I think
they just killed Kamala Khan again.
Hold on. I think she has had 5 or 6 reboots now.
Yeah.
No, they just killed her, but they are bringing her back because the actress is writing a story, right?
She is Canadian, so I'll give her that. I don't hate on her.
What does that even mean, that she's Canadian?
Just gonna support a fellow Canadian. That's it. That's all. She's a
Jordan,
15-year-old
I gotta
girl.
ask you a question. This is not political. This is not political.
Regulations, you have to now. It's by law.
Yeah. Okay, but Jordan, not political. Thank goodness. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
I bet I will wager my house all the people you dislike most in the world right now are Canadian. So anyway.
Well, yeah, but that's
but that means nothing. Saying that somebody is Canadian means nothing.
Yeah, but
Wolverine's Canadian.
She's a real life Kamala Khan, right?
Is he?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay, but my point is yeah, okay, fair.
What about X-23?
Oh, that's tokenized.
Absolutely.
Now let me ask you this:
Yep.
If X-23 had been male,
still tokenized,
right? But do you feel any differently about the lackluster appeal of the character?
Yeah,
no.
I do. I feel differently. Sorry,
really?
not differently. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm going to say if a male X-23 was talking about having a piss fetish, I still wouldn't like it.
True.
That
I just
actually
wouldn't like
happens.
it.
So whenever I see someone in the brown and tan or the blue and yellow, and it's not Logan, it's wrong.
James, you mean James?
Sorry for James, my mistake, Mr. Howler.
Yeah.
He's right though, but that's my point. No, I would still. It's still tokenized. I still think it's lazy. If they had, like you said, Chris, like you said it perfectly. If She-Hulk, when she had received the gamma blood, or if Wolverine had been cloned, and these characters had completely different skill set, power set, everything to them. Now we're into different territory completely. We're in different grounds. We're talking about different things. These apples and oranges now. But when you're trying to carbon copy somebody, but just throwing some tits on them and saying now, you know what I mean, it's innovative. It isn't.
But Marvel admits that they were doing it just to be able to draw in that other 50% of the demographic.
And it actually worked.
Right.
What
do you mean it worked? What do you mean it worked? Comic sales are in the gutter.
No, I'm talking about women readers are way up, and comic book shops will attest
Okay, hold on. Okay, that's great that women readers are way up, but male readers are way down, and comics are suffering.
Yeah, but if you're conflating two separate issues, because if we're talking about when She-Hulk came out, that was a time when they were trying to draw in. They weren't trying to whatever this bullshit is that they're doing now with trying to destroy IPs left, right, and center, and discourage anyone from consuming to flatline these businesses, which is my belief. But when She-Hulk originated, the desire was it's like making gender specific underwear, right? Like you got to make two kinds. And there's no harm in that.
Sorry, sex specific underwear.
Oh jeez. You're 2 seconds, Jordan.
I'm almost there.
Yeah.
All right.
So it definitely at the time and was an admission of theirs that they were specifically going for trying to draw in female readers, young female readers. If you're, as Dave was saying, if you're comparing it to today, yeah, of course there are more female readers because that's the only possible solution of who they're appealing to is a very specific type of female audience. Not even just a female audience, because most of the females in my life, okay, maybe, not in the age to be consuming it, but they're not interested. Like my daughter literally just, not only The Last Ronin, they were down in Niagara on the Lake on the weekend, and she not only bought comics, she sent me pictures while they were at an antique shop of some comics that she was going through, and she pulls up and shows me this one title, and I say, oh, I have that one. I actually have 3 copies of it. And it was a Daredevil title from like 1992. And I think I have it here somewhere. But even she mocks, the new Warriors, for instance, as the most egregious of the takes that you could have.
Yes.
But, and I explained to her when the New Warriors came out in like 91, the original one, 91 or 92, as if memory serves me correctly. I actually have all those original titles, and I loved them. I thought they were a great new spin. Again, collecting a bunch of somewhat useless characters that were bouncing around, making appearances here and there, and giving them their own team, and making it actually something that you wanted. Not everyone wanted it, but I thought it was cool. They took Nova, who was kind of a stale character. They backed his age up, and they made him, I think he was 19 in the original run. And
I hated New York Warriors. Just for the record, I hated it when it came out.
Why?
But anyways, go on.
What reason? By the way, this is I don't know if it'll show actually because
I thought artwork was garbage. Story was horrible. Just could not grab me. but
Well,
go on.
and they had, you know, they created an entirely new character. They came out with Night Thrasher, which was basically Batman and Iron Man mixed together.
They created him because skateboards were popular at the time.
Right. And made him black because, again, drawing in a different demographic than what their core audience was. And you can look at it in multiple ways. Like, yes, they're trying to draw in, because they are a business, they're trying to draw in more people that aren't usually there as a demographic. So they're reaching to those people, the females, the let's say black people, black males, any different. And with Kamala Khan, they're reaching at, we in North America now have a massive Indian Pakistani population, and it's growing day by day. So they're reaching for those people as customers. So you can't necessarily fault them for going after that audience. Where you can fault them is for screwing over their original longtime core audience, which is white males, 18 to 35, or even younger, sorry, like 8 to 35. That is the core demographic of reader consuming comic collectors.
Okay, but how are they screwing them over? Can you explain to me?
They're not appealing to them, man. They're
It's not.
not.
It's worse than just not appealing to them. They are shitting on characters. Like, look what they're doing with Punisher right now.
Well, yeah, we
Yep.
just talked about that.
We covered that last episode.
That is a bent over without lube deep dicking of a long-time white core audience that collected these comics, that were the reason that you're still alive. Like, how many times throughout history, and I would look it up to see the accuracy of it, Marvel was on the brink of bankruptcy multiple times. And who is the only reason they made it through those? Okay, yes, you could argue they are, because they made better business decisions along the way. But because of the people buying their products, which were and are white men.
Okay, I gotta say something though. Just to be clear though, it's like I don't buy a book because Captain America is a white male. You know,
Absolutely
I don't
not.
buy.
Neither do
I bounce around all over the place, and it doesn't matter to me. Like they could be like, you know, an Asian whatever. You know, it's the story and the characters and whatever else, right? It doesn't. I don't even care what race or gender they are, right?
You're right. You're right. Neither do I. But
should it really matter to
but I also don't buy a book that purposefully shits on it either.
Right. But that's
Well, hold on, guys. I'm going to try to steer back to the topic. Tokenized women and their successes. And so far, the only one that we've talked about is She-Hulk. And I'm going to be honest, and like I said, I think it's because she's the exception to the rule.
Can I throw out?
Oh, can I finish this? 1 second. And I think that the reason why is if you have a tokenized character, readers pick up on it. Okay? The guys that are doing the work behind the scenes are giving it a half-assed job because they know what it is in their heart of hearts. And that is why we don't see more widespread success with female tokenized characters, why their titles have to be rebooted constantly, forever. They have to be put on life support all the damn time. They cannot stand on their own 2 feet. They always need other elements from that comic universe to keep them alive. I just say it's lazy writing. It's uninspired. It's a cheap cash grab. I just don't think in general it's a good idea. Now, if we have better ideas like Chris had put out, like spin-off characters that are widely divergent, that are more creative, that still have ties to established characters, but are their own element, that changes everything completely.
Here's the thing, Paul, to your point, I believe, is if they took these characters and gave them a better writing staff, a better art department, if they gave them some of the A and B listers in the company to work on them, nobody would even think twice whether they were tokenized or not. If you're putting out something good, people will consume it. Yes.
Yep.
And as successful as garbage entertainment can be with your Fast and Furious franchises and and Transformer franchise movies and stuff like that. It is pure garbage. There is no there. Okay, there's quality in the visual aspect of it. There's quality in the effort put forth to actually make it, because making a movie, believe it or not, is a lot of work, and it's hard as hell. And when you're putting that volume of work and effort into it, where you've got massive practical and digital effects, you are definitely putting in some work. But the core of that work should start, the foundation should always be the story, the script, the characters. If you don't have that, there should be no point in going forward. But the problem is we have a mass audience that use phrases like, I don't care if it wins Oscar awards. I just want to go and turn my brain off and watch something fun. And what's fun to them is, ooh, bright lights, big colors. Oh, I don't care. And they sit there, they shut their brain off and they don't care. But it is proven throughout history that a good story will still sell. You can still go and buy Charles Dickens books because they're good stories, and people can, no matter how old they are, people can relate to them. They can,
Yep.
or they can glean something of the time period they were written in, and they will never stop selling for that reason. Whereas no one is going to go out and buy second run Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel stories, the one that made it to issue 6 and got canceled when they had big plans for it to be their next big title to take over as one of the lead Marvel characters in sales, and it never worked.
Absolutely.
Because as much as they want to keep forcing it down people's throats, they aren't putting in the work to give you a quality story to latch onto. There's no intrigue in the characters or the stories. There's no promise of getting anything better. So you don't even feel like you should, like, who's got an issue 1 of Captain Marvel that they're, heralding in their collection? Nobody, because nobody gave a shit to rush out and get it.
Nope. You're absolutely right. All right, Jordan, what do you think? You're the one who wants to defend the. You're going to die on this hill, so die on it. Go ahead.
What for She-Hulk?
No, just for tokenized characters.
Well, you made it to women. So I mean, I haven't brought up Miles. So
Don't do it.
What?
As a tokenized character?
Oh, he's absolutely tokenized.
No, Miles is 100% a tokenized character, but he's also a very successful character.
I'll bring one up. How's that? Ready?
Yeah.
Let's
right.
talk about
female though. We're talking women here. Come on.
Female Thor.
Jane Foster.
Okay. Let me finish first before you tear it apart. I don't know if you've read it, but for me, that was my number one comic for a long time. That book was so awesome. And you have to keep in mind, though, the idea wasn't to replace Thor, because we all knew Thor was coming back. It was a story arc, in a sense. It lasted a long time, but it was fantastic. That book, like both of them, because there was 2 of them, just incredible. Sorry.
So for the people who haven't read it, Dave, give us a quick rundown of what happened, because Jane Foster wasn't Thor all of a sudden, right?
No. Okay, so we have to start with what they kind of based the one film off of was that whole, like, there was a Thor story that happened, and basically the bad guy he was going up against, there was a big arc and everything, but at the end, basically he whispered to Thor something, and you don't get to hear what the whisper was, but all of a sudden Thor was no longer worthy. So he said something like basically to the effect of, "Oh, gods are so great," or whatever, and it's basically just fractured his belief in himself. So for that point, he couldn't lift up the hammer, right? He felt he was no longer worthy. He realized that, he wasn't. So he wasn't able to do it. But then they interjected the storyline with Jane, right? And all of a sudden, a new Thor showed up who was worthy. And we didn't know it was Jane for the first long time. And that was part of it, was that whole mystery of who the hell is this chick that's got the hammer, right? And Jane basically had taken up the mantle to help and, keep Thor alive, and do the work that Thor would have been doing. because he was shattered and broken during that period, right? But the whole thing is that Jane was dying of cancer, and Jane was meant to die, and she was dying. And every time she used the hammer, the cancer got worse and worse. So it was like a ticking time bomb that she was going to die by the end of it. And that's what the actual storyline was. She did, after the end of it all, and Thor became worthy again, she died. But it was like the whole run of it was fantastic. Like all the stories that they did in it.
My
Question.
next. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Paul.
I want to fire one in. Why did they have to tear Thor down?
Well, think about it this way. Every character needs to have a breaking point sometimes. Like look at like when Gwen Stacy died. It hurt Peter, right? It made him question himself, and it's a character building moment. And I think what they did that
It didn't. How did it build Thor?
Because it made him reassess and rekindle why he is Thor. And
So
why he does what he does.
it required Thor to see a character who is still nebulous why she was worthy to be Thor. To this day, it's nebulous why she was worthy to be Thor. Like Cap, we can all understand why he can pick the hammer up.
Mhm.
Jane Foster, it's nebulous.
Well, it's
So it required somebody else to inspire Thor to be Thor, even though he's been Thor all along.
For over a thousand years.
Thor for the right reasons, but you have to also understand, like Thor himself, like it was just like.
My point is, I get where you're coming from, but why did they have to destroy a character to raise this one up?
Well, whoever wrote the first arc, like that destroyed the character, and then the new team or whatever took over and built him back. Right, the redemption of it all.
We're talking chicken and egg now because I don't
So we're talking about some guy whispered in Thor's ear and he's no longer worthy. We're not even talking about Jane has cancer, she's going to die, and it sends Thor into a tailspin because this is the true love of his century-long life.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a villain just whispered and took his god powers away like that.
Yeah, like I never read that arc. I don't know the whole
Sure.
whole storyline, but yeah, that was the gist of it. What I found out later on.
And then
question. Well, okay, ultimately, this is going to be it. This is going to be the make or break, Dave. Sorry,
Okay,
everybody, and then you guys can jump in. Who's a better Thor?
okay. If I have to say it, and you're going to hate me for it, I have never enjoyed reading Thor as much as I've read it when Jane was Thor. Never.
Okay.
That's that.
Well, then
that boils it down. Then that's.
That,
what
I guess that's that. If you're going to say that, but that's what I mean. If you're going to say that she's a better Thor, then yeah, the argument's out. It's already done. So,
let's say the stories were better for me.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Another thing is could she exist without what Thor has already established for decades?
No, but that's also part of the storyline, right? The whole storyline was because it was never meant to be that she's going to be Thor forever. It was an arc in a sense, right? It is a time period, a story arc, and it did its purpose and it was done, right? It was a long arc, but it happened.
All right, I'm done asking questions.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, but to Dave's point, I kind of agree with him, and I said this when they first started doing Thor movies. Thor 1 kind of sucked. Thor 2 kind of sucked. But then when they integrated him into the Avengers, it really started to work. The initial confrontation between him and Iron Man, and then Cap stepping in the Avengers movie when he's trying to take Loki, was compelling. It was good. It was well done. But what I would tell people at the time is the Thor comics are, to me, historically much like Superman. They were boring.
Yep.
They had a lot of boring stories. It was hard to get invested into it. I enjoyed when they crossed him over. I enjoyed his involvement in the original Infinity Gauntlet series. And that was when it was, I believe, Eric Masterson as Thor. So there was the aspect of, At the time in the Marvel Universe, not many people knew that Thor was not the real Thor, the original Thor. It was Eric Masterson beholding the power of Thor. And during that series of the Infinity Gauntlet, he had to maintain contact with the hammer for 60 seconds. And Thanos didn't know, but he got rid of the hammer, and Eric Masterson was screwed for a moment. And he needed the hammer back and almost died as a result. So again, adding in elements that were part of the collective universe into this run of an epic story. Anyways, I sidetracked. The Thor comics run were very boring. I didn't enjoy them. I didn't actively collect them. I've got a handful of them in my collection, but I didn't actively collect Thor, even when I was collecting almost everything. And
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
and it was the boring aspect. And if you look at it in relation to what we were talking about, the Captain Marvel Carol Danvers issues, is that's why they did shit like turn him into a frog. That's why they did shit like make him Donald Blake and Eric Masterson and handing off the mantle, was to try and rejuvenate some interest in the title, because they knew that they weren't putting out their best work. There was something unappealing. Whether the writing was good or not, I couldn't even get into it, because there was just something rather unappealing about the character, because he was so essentially
Godlike.
flawless. Yeah, flawless. And
Mhm.
and almost invulnerable. And even when he went up against giant characters and ultimately powerful evil badasses, he still came out ahead with minimal effort. So I don't know. I didn't read the Jane Foster run, so I can't speak to it the way Dave is. I can't say whether it was good or bad. I just don't like I've never enjoyed the pilfering of an existing property, but I understand it.
Yeah. Now, my question is okay. So, Dave, you agreed with Chris that Thor was boring because he was too unbeatable. All right,
Yeah,
he was too godlike. Okay, part of the reason I like Thor is because I get to see him fight entire armies. I think
I can see that.
I think that's awesome. It brings me back to my Conan days and stuff like that. So I like that kind of stuff. But you can fight armies of giants or armies of men. Doesn't matter. He's fighting like insurmountable odds, and I love those like 2-page splashes of him fighting everybody. But that being said, it's boring when it's Thor, but it's okay when it's She-Thor and she's crashing everybody and being a god.
That's I guess that's what it is. I don't know.
Oh man, you just wanted to see Thor with boobs. Admit it, man.
No. I'll be honest. The reason why I started reading Jane Thor was because I had to do a drawing of her, and I had no interest in. I hated the whole idea. But as soon as I started diving in, I just could not stop turning pages. That
Okay.
was it. So,
But she's doing the exact same thing Thor's doing.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
No. He did.
What do you mean no? Is she? Oh, she's not fighting giants and demons and dark elves and all that kind of stuff. She's not doing that.
Absolutely, but she had a curse. Every time she touched the hammer,
Yeah, she was dying more and more.
Would progress. So it's,
let me ask you.
Wait.
Okay, so go on.
So every time she touched the hammer,
yep, she's dying.
She's dying. So now she has a moral question.
A reason why she's worthy,
or do I have, or do I save myself? So there is some compelling stuff there, right?
And even that's the whole thing
between
at the end.
battles.
Yeah, like the whole thing at the end, she ended up having to like fight Magog, this big god.
I know who Magog is.
Yeah, she had to fight him, and she had to die doing it. Just to save everyone. Right? She put her life on the line to do it.
Right.
So, but yeah,
but,
let's go back. If you really,
my point is that so the only reason is because when she does her Thor stuff, her cancer gets worse, so that makes her more compelling. Just to make sure I'm clear here.
No, everything. all her interactions, how she acted, the way she talked, what she did, her choices, everything she did, it was all amazing. It was really great.
Yeah, because she did everything like Superman, right? From a very, very high horse principled kind of aspect, where Thor did it from a kind of a swaggering Viking aspect, right? So you like
Possibly.
that. The reason why you didn't like Superman is the reason why you like her.
No, I never said that.
Okay, sure. I'm just saying, man. Like I just see there are just a lot of contradictions that are going on. So
I know
don't get me wrong.
we
Sometimes you like things just because you like them. I get it, but I mean, like it's just I don't know. Like I think Beta Ray Thor was a more compelling character than her.
Oh God, no, no way, not even
Absolutely.
close. No.
Well, really? You want to know why he was worthy of a hammer? Because he's trying to save his entire species.
Yeah.
One man.
I know. I know the storyline, but
Yeah, you know what I mean?
that's a concept, but the actual character, the actual person, like what they say and how they do things, it's different, right? I get his motivation, but I'm just saying, just hands down, it was probably one of the best Marvel stories.
Like
I've read in the last decade.
he's another tokenized character. Don't get me wrong, he's tokenized, but he has a very interesting backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And he looks cool.
Now, you're using tokenized in an, I'd say, inappropriate way, because tokenization usually refers to things that we're familiar with and that they're trying to appeal to a certain demographic. What demographic are they appealing to with the Beta Ray Bill character? The aliens with skull faces?
Okay, well, I don't think that. Okay, well, that's where I guess we're going to differ on, because I don't think that it's just to appeal to a demographic. I think it's just.
Well, tokenization is based on you're inserting a character for the purpose of having that demographic.
Well, I think it's just, for me, a tokenized character is, I can absolutely see your point, but for me, a tokenized character is just a carbon copy in certain aspects of a character. And I think Beta Ray Thor fits that. Literally, his Thor is in his name, and he has all the powers of Thor, all of them.
Right.
So, like, I don't know. Yeah, obviously, he's not appealing to any alien race or species or anything like that. But we have Thor. We don't need another Thor, right? Like, we have a Thor, and that's why one of the things, like that's my big thing with Miles Morales. And we're way off topic because we're supposed to be talking about women. But regardless, with Miles Morales, we don't need a Spider-Man. We have Spider-Man. Why do we need a second Spider-Man? All those stories and all that effort they're putting into Miles Morales, they could be putting into Peter Parker to make better stories for him. But they don't.
And also, I'll go back to Jane Thor again. It's not that Thor wasn't part of it, because it was a Thor storyline. Thor was very much in all those comics, so it was a Thor book still, right? It's not just her.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know about tearing down your character to bring up a tokenized character. I'm not a fan of that.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. That was the story arc before. This is like a path of redemption. This was the writer's ideas of how to bring Thor back, really. So I give my hats off to them for that whole arc and the way.
I just don't understand why somebody who has been fighting the good fight for thousands of years needs to be inspired that way.
Well, I have to read that storyline still to find out.
That's part of the reason I hate bringing in the movies, guys, and I know that we always do, but I'm bringing it. It's the part of the reason why Thor in the movies is so, because he got to keep finding himself. Are you telling me a guy who's been around this long doesn't know who he is?
Right.
Well, he's got.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
He's got daddy issues, right? Come on.
That's the laziness of the appealing to a mass audience in their writing, is that they figured out, and as I'm sure you all know, that let's be that fast talking Tony Stark quipping, which is pretty much Robert Downey Jr. being Robert Downey Jr. That's what he brought to the character.
Yeah.
Because that's not how Tony Stark in the comics was. He was very serious. He
is now, though.
Yeah, because they've seen that it works and it appeals to people, and it's that quippy Michael Keaton-esque quality of, let's just keep this thing moving. Like we've got to just keep talking for the purposes of, and I'll say some funny stuff every now and then. And it's where they went with all of their movies, but it really honestly started with the Tony Stark character, and then heavily bled into Thor because that first movie he was boring and stuffy and whatever, and then they realized they can play off of his interstellar naivete of the way of how things work. Oh, he's going to smash a mug on the oh, this is great, I want another, and smashes the mug, and people are stunned and shocked by that, and they got the reaction they wanted. So much like I call it the Jack Black syndrome. You remember when Jack Black first came out and he was a tertiary character in anything he was in, like what's the one with the records with John Cusack?
Starts
Empire
with a
Records.
C.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
High Fidelity.
Oh,
That's
right.
it.
Sorry.
High Fidelity, and they're working in the store, and Jack Black is the background character who says some funny shit. And Hollywood has a habit of this. They go, oh, you like that, we're going to give you all of that, so, to the point where, and again, look at Star Wars. We were starved for Star Wars content for almost 3 full decades, and they said, "Oh, you like lightsabers? Well, by the third movie, we're going to give you so many fucking lightsabers that you're gonna never want to see another lightsaber again."
Fair.
And it's that overabundance. They coined the phrase "always leave them wanting more," and yet all they do is they find something you like and they shove it down
Well,
your throat,
yeah.
and
I mean,
they spin it off to shove it down your throat even further.
it goes back to like also. I know it's not comics, but Jurassic Park. There's only 14 minutes of dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. It might even be 8 minutes. My numbers might be wrong, but an hour and a half film, and then you go to the last Jurassic Park, and it's just you have a T-Rex fighting a Gigasaur fighting a Therosaurus, and it's like it's so much, whereas less is more.
And it's a great point, because and I'm not really a fan of Steven Spielberg, but I can't deny the success the guy's had, obviously. But I find his formula very hackish when you boil it down. But what he does do, and what he is a master of, is he understands what I said before, is you want mystery, you want intrigue, you want to draw them in. In novel writing, in story writing, and in screenwriting, there are what are called plot points, and you have to space out your plot points, and you do that to draw your viewer, to draw your reader into the next concept of the story,
Mm-hmm.
because your characters and your story has an arc, an overall arc, but it has multiple little arcs along the way, and you have to keep jumping from lily pad to lily pad, and you have to keep the reader or the viewer entertained and wanting to go to that next pad with you, or else you've got no intrigue. And the only the impetus for all this is to get people to read, watch, and consume your stuff and give you money for it. So if you're not doing that, what are you doing? Because if you're playing music and you're writing your own music, you could do that knowing that no one will ever hear it, and it's a cathartic thing for you. But if you're able to intrigue other people into it, you put a hook in there that draws people in and they want to hear it, then you could become a wealthy person based on people wanting to consume your stuff. But you could live a totally anonymous life without ever having sold a song, ever having had airplay on a song, but do it for the catharsis. And you can do that in writing as well. But the minute that you put it into the entertainment industry, the purpose is a business to draw people in, to have them open up their wallets and give you money to consume what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to do that, you have to have the key cornerstones of good storytelling.
So
And without it, all you're doing is blowing shit up and racing cars and jumping off of buildings and putting a car in space somehow. And
All right, we're running out of time. So Jordan, make your points.
yeah, don't exactly remember what it was, but at the end of the day, this is what it was. Was the she Thor, or what, Jane Foster Thor run successful? Did people buy it at the end of the
Yeah.
day?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
As far as I
Okay.
know,
I don't know the numbers. It was a legitimate question.
If
All
I
right.
remember correctly, I read an article where the sales were higher than they've ever been for Thor in such a long time.
That's interesting.
Okay.
And then
My-
this topic
go on.
also gave me my next week's topic. I'm going to plug it now.
All right.
Are superheroes attached to their secret identity? Or are superheroes just mantles that can be passed for those who are worthy?
Okay. I got one last question for you, Dave.
Oh no.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, multiverse.
Okay. No, it's not. I don't. If I kick you now, you're not coming back. All right. All right. So the question is it's a simple one.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So Jane Foster became powerful, right? Superpowered, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Could she have had a different power set and still had an interesting storyline?
They have done that now. They've brought her back. She's Valkyrie. She has
And she has a different power set.
Yeah, she's the only
Hold
one.
on.
She's the last Valkyrie. Yeah.
I don't want an up-to-date lesson on this. All I want to know is that if she had the powers of Valkyrie back then, would it still have made the same kind of interesting stories that would have had you turning pages? Yes or no?
No, because we needed to build the.
So she had to have Thor's power.
Yeah, we needed to build her up first. Yep.
No, build her up. What, you're saying the powers of Valkyrie weren't enough?
Nope.
I would say it'd be confusing if she was holding Mjolnir and she didn't have the powers of.
No, I'm not even saying to leave Mjolnir out of it. Leave Mjolnir out of it.
Yeah. No. She has the all weapon now. But yeah, no, she had to go on her own journey, and that part of that process of taking up the mantle for a while was part of that to build her character into the modern Jane Thor that we have. That's not boring, you know.
Hold on, I don't get it. So she had to go on a journey to become a less powerful character.
Here, let me put it this way: you got to read it. You just
all right.
Read it. You got.
Fair. I'm just asking because if the whole thing was her every time she uses her powers or abilities, basically use Mjolnir, that she's starting to die, and that's the big draw. That's the big, I don't know what it is. That's a big plot. That's the sink. Could it have been the same with another? Like she had a different weapon, like a sword, and every time she used it, and she had a different power set. She didn't have a Storm God's power set. She had something else. Would you have still been invested, or did she have to be tokenized from Thor to be interesting?
I'm not sure. I'd have to see it though. That's the thing. I'd have to know.
Why didn't they put Jane and Thor side by side and they become this power couple of Marvel?
But the thing is, even during the thing, Thor still has Thor's powers. He just doesn't have the hammer. Thor is still Thor, and they are. Most of the arc is them fighting together. They're doing the work together. They are right beside each other. He's Thor Odin's son then, right? That's who he is.
Chris, last thoughts.
Well, how long do we have?
Not long.
because something just occurred to me, and I want to pose the question to you guys.
All right, go ahead.
Have we not had these type of characters without being spin-off characters for a long time? We've had Robin to Batman. We've had Bucky Barnes to Captain America. We've had Rick Jones to Bruce Banner. We've had all of these sidekicks that are basically boiled down versions other than Rick Jones. He was more of a true sidekick. But we've had these sidekick characters that are boiled down versions, watered down versions of the main popular character.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of like Rick Jones and Captain America, they were there from the beginning. So they were part of the circle that enabled the character to be
the canon.
It was almost like, in some cases, it was also in the poor storytelling or dialogue, not the poor storytelling, the poor dialogue of the olden, the original run of comic books is they over-explained things from character to character, or even in soliloquy form, where a character was either thought bubbles or outright speaking. We saw it in our Strange Tales introduction to Doctor Strange. There's a lot of it that's very needlessly verbose, and they've found ways to do it better over time. But you've got Bucky Barnes, who started off as the little sidekick character, and he had his little, outfit and everything, and then they were able to evolve that character further and bring him into the new age, and bring him up with a whole separate power set and different unique qualities than just being a Captain America clone.
Right. Yeah.
So, in that regard, again, I go back to my point. If you have the quality staff working on the characters and the stories, nobody's going to look at it again and say, well, this is bullshit because Carol Danvers stealing the mantle of Captain Marvel is garbage, and they're not even doing it well. You've got Bucky Barnes turns into the Winter Soldier because you've got this entire backstory that's been built up over time, and someone somewhere along the lines, I forget who actually developed the character, someone sat down and said, what if we take this character that we haven't done anything with in a long time and turn him into something greater and make him a foe of Captain America?
That was Brubaker. That was that guy.
Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those iconic things. Like, I bring it back to the Doctor Who thing. When they brought Doctor Who back, and they took this Time Lord, which was already a mystic sort of being, and they said, now he's the last of the Time Lords. And it's things like that you can't do without establishing a history first. You can, but it just doesn't have the same weight. It doesn't have the same emphasis and the same draw to a viewing or reading audience. So the fact that they're able to do that with those characters, as opposed to introducing a spin-off character like She-Hulk, like Spider-Woman, like so many of the other ones. And I wasn't sure where the female topic was going when Jordan told me that it was going to be one. But one of the things I wanted to point out was I've talked to people over the years, and they go, yeah, but comics aren't for girls. They don't even write girl characters. And I'm like, I got tired of hearing it so often that I went, there's tons of girl characters. And I'd name off Rogue and Storm.
Yep.
And then I go, then there's Dazzler, and there's Jubilee, and Kitty Pryde.
Yep. Most of them are X-Men. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, most of the female characters are in or have been an X-Men. And I went, no, but there were tons of female Avengers. Look up how many female Avengers actually were beyond Scarlet Witch, beyond
Wasp.
The original. Sorry,
Wasp. And Scarlet Witch.
Right.
Yeah.
Tigra, Hellcat.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, just go on.
When you look at the roster of who has been an Avenger and compare it to how many have been women, it is very minute.
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
And again, that lends to my earlier argument that, okay, but know your audience. Who's consuming your product? And it's white men. And yeah, okay. And there was the era in the 90s. I wish I had thought of it because I have an old Wizard magazine where they were doing like the Swimsuit Illustrated
Yeah, God, yeah.
Nice.
version.
Nice.
And they had the posters of like all the female characters in Marvel done up with huge boobs and big hips and big asses and in swimsuits. And I still have it to this day in one of my boxes. And does that appeal? Again, you're taking female characters, which, if we were to believe your purpose is to draw in a female audience, but then you're hyper-sexualizing them.
Exactly.
So you're still appealing to the male core audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they have been changing that. They have been changing that lately, right?
Yeah, and comic book sales are telling you a whole lot about those changes. So, look, I'm just saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So there you go. And I'm all about appealing to other demographics and other markets for sure. But like Chris said, not at the detriment of your bread and butter. You don't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. You just don't do it.
Right, like McDonald's can introduce a salad.
Yep.
But if they introduced the salad and said we're getting rid of the Big Mac in lieu of it,
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
For sure.
Okay. So last thoughts, everybody. I'm going to be putting up some people's plugs at the bottom on the bottom ticker. All righty. So, Jordan, you got any last thoughts today? Anything you want to plug?
Nothing I want to plug. I think we broke a record today. This is our longest one yet, which is pretty
It
cool.
probably will be.
And I had a lot of fun doing it. That's all I gotta say.
Chris, anything you want to plug, man?
No, not really. I mean, my company is called Timecode Productions. We do photography, video, film, 3D modeling, and animation in the Greater Toronto area.
Amazing.
And we travel. So if the work is elsewhere, we go elsewhere.
Okay, Dave, anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I want to go back to the whole idea about the multiverse and us doing this. It would be really good if Doctor Strange was in.
Okay, so guys, I want to thank everybody for participating today.
I saw that coming up Main Street in a cab.
Right, like literally. Oh my good, he's making it too artificial now. All righty, so I do want to thank you guys. It was amazing, and we're going to be doing it again next week here on Comics Conspiracy.